Everybody, make sure you hit the like button, baby. I'm still recovering a little bit from last night, man. That was a long weekend. Spending all day in the Grove on Saturday didn't help. And I managed like 18,000 steps yesterday on top of everything else. And that was with Ubering down to Piedmont Park. All right, we'll go and get started. Make sure you hit like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I am wearing my Guns N' Roses Atlanta shirt that I got free as some swag from the band. Thanks everyone for jumping on. I want to try to do these as a kind of reaction post game show thing. I realize it's not really practical for me to do it like the day of the game, but I would like to do one on Sunday along with my Q's Take column. So we'll try to get this in, and then we'll also try to do some other stuff as well. Yeah, let's go. So I'm going to jump into the questions that are in the original thread, and then I'll start talking about some other stuff, and I'll take some questions from the chat here as we go along as well. And I just like keep going out. That's weird. Okay. What's going on here? All right. So, first question from our great ATL fan for life. Do you see any changes with the scheme for the defense? Defense continue to be bad, won't make a bowl, blah, 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 blah. Would Key make a change? DC. I don't know what's going on as an Andrew Thacker issue, or it seems to me to be more personnel based in Jimmy's and Joe's than scheme. I think that you have your best all ACC safety not playing anywhere close to the level he played last season for whatever reason. I think he's hurt and trying to play through it, to be honest with you. I think that I think that the linebacker thing's a huge transition from really Charlie's been a multi-year starter. AC Ely was a multi-year starter. AC Ely was not great his first year in the defense, was much better last year. There's a lot of growing pains going on, and they don't have a big thumper at Mike linebacker. I think that's a big part of the problem with the defense. You don't have an eraser guy, and Charlie Thomas, there's no one as dynamic as him on this team either. So it's all kind of coming together like that. So I think that the defense is a complex issue. I don't know that it's all on Thacker. It'll be interesting to see kind of Brent's take on it. I can't speak for Brent. Certainly not a conversation I'm going to have with him in the middle of the season either, privately, and certainly wouldn't tell you if I did. But I just think that there's going to be some tweaks, I'm sure, as this goes along. Someone asked about the D-line. D-line looking pedestrian is the word the questioner used. I would say they've been adequate would be the way I'd phrase it. They're not doing a ton, but they're not costing them games either yet. They're just not – there's not a lot of playmaking going on. It's usually been one guy in a game and one or two plays and some missed tackles. Like not to single people out. Zeke had a couple missed tackles but played a great game otherwise. It's just little things like that. They are missing by like this much, missing sacks by like that much. Like it's close to being better. This is as simple as new coaches need time to play fast. I think they look very tentative. I agree. Defenses look very tentative to me, and I don't know what that's about because that is the opposite of the way they played last year. They were fast and loose. And yeah, you're going to get torched, but it seems like they're afraid to get torched, which is more of a problem in of itself. And you have guys not just going out there and cutting it loose. And so they need to figure out whether it's simplifying something on the defense or changing their calls or whatever it is that'll allow those guys to play faster. Or they got to start playing the kids and let them cut it loose. Um, how on earth do some teams come out look mid-season form tackling on D, and some teams look like they're playing patty cake with a baby seal? Are some teams doing more contact than is allowed? There are certainly coaches who bend the rules in terms of practice, what can be done, what isn't done in practice, and that's as much as I'll say about that. Even at a place like USF, Charlie Strong got in trouble, and they ended up with some sort of NCAA issue there, and they were not very good because he was cheating in terms of what they were doing in practice and having too many people like, coaching the team and things like that, and they ended up getting in a bunch of trouble for it. So yes, there are probably some coaches bending the rules. As far as tackling, it looked terrible the first 2 weeks of the season across the board. I don't think that was unique to Georgia Tech. They got exposed a little bit more by the scheme they were playing and maybe some inexperience at corner. I mean, remember, the first game of the season, the two starting cornerbacks from last year did not play in it. Miles Sims was out, and Zamari Weldon was in Oxford playing for Ole Miss. So you were breaking in two new corners. I thought that got exposed a little bit, but it's more of a different thing. Someone asked if this will help or hurt recruiting for Georgia Tech. It is more of a question for Russell, but I would say it doesn't hurt. Nothing hurts. I think if you don't go bowling at the end of the year, that could be a little complicated because I think you need to show that leap forward. The one more win is a leap forward given how hard the schedule is. So I think that's going on. Do I believe that Key is frustrated with that? I think Brett Key is very frustrated with losing games that he thinks they should have won or had a chance to win. They've had a chance to win the two games they've lost this season. To me, this game at Ole Miss played out more like I kind of thought it would. But they were good on run defense other than, having some issues with Dart slipping out. I thought they played okay. Louisville game, I thought they were worse defensively, and probably the PFF numbers probably back that up. And South Carolina State showed sort of the things that I was worried about, which is the QB runs, the option stuff, QBs getting loose on them. That's been a little bit of a common theme. You don't have, again, that Charlie Thomas eraser guy, so that's an issue. He talks about being aggressive. Why doesn't it translate to the field? I think they've been aggressive in a lot of different phases of the game, but it's not aggressive like to be stupidly aggressive, right? You're not going to just pin your ears back and blitz Tenuta style every play on defense or throw home run shots. I watched the Alabama USF game and they're down 3-0 and Tommy Reese, offensive coordinator, is taking 50-50 balls or worse with a first time starting quarterback at their school that has limited college experience. Like I don't think you take shots to take shots. Were they a little conservative on offense at times? Maybe. I don't know what the calls were though, and none of us do. Like that's the other part of it. Like you don't know if there was a check because of something they saw. They may have had certain plays called. There was one play where I'm fairly certain they had something dialed up and Ole Miss called a timeout on defense, and because they saw whatever it was and freaked out and called a timeout. So I think that this is a growing situation. This is not a staff in its third year with everyone intact trying to build something up. This is a little different than that. On offense, the passing game looks much better this year, but not the run game. Does a healthy Dante Smith would be a huge boost. Any insight on when he'd be back in action? I have no idea what's wrong with Dante. I saw him with sunglasses on the sideline. Normally that means a bump on the head, but I don't know that was that. He may have just been wearing sunglasses and been out with something else. I think it would help if you had a third, more consistent back. I think Trey Cooley's played pretty well. I think Jamal Haynes has played pretty well, but they don't have maybe that guy that moves the Jordan Mason in the more recent way of putting it that can lean forward and push the pile a little bit. And I think that's been missing. They got really caught up in some third and short, fourth and short situations where maybe if you have that guy, it gives you a few more options too, even in terms of play action or boots with Haynes or things like that. So that's what's going on there. Did you happen to ever see Lane's son sneaking over and messing with the chains? And do you think Jeff Collins is jealous of the Ole Miss sideline smoke machine? I definitely think Jeff Collins is jealous of the smoke machine thing. I thought that was pretty funny. I was like, what is that? And then I saw that. So there was the chain thing, man. Like that is the sketchiest damn thing I have seen in a very long time. It maybe I'd have to go back to like when when Middle Tennessee State stole Al Groh's defensive sign somehow in that game as like the next maybe most shady thing I've seen for a whole game, like happened multiple times in a game. There have been shady plays here and there. I think of the JT5 fumble at Georgia that should have been blown dead, like stuff like that, but not like a consistent thing that happened 3 times in a game, all on explosives by Georgia Tech. That was super freaking weird. Let's see. Regarding the issue with the chains, can you get your unfiltered opinion? Yeah, I think I just gave it to you. I thought it was BS. Put it politely. What are things that Tech fans can take away from the losses to Louisville and Ole Miss that could pay dividends if we get deeper into ACC play? I mean, I think you've played one of the better all-around teams you're going to face now in Ole Miss, and it was a 7-point game. And Georgia Tech did not play well in that game, and it was a 7-point game with 10 minutes to go, or under whatever it was when they scored. It was 7.5 or 8 or whatever. Like, that's pretty good. That was a lot better than I thought they were doing. I was texting with a buddy who had the same opinion I did that was at home watching, and he was like, this has gone better than I thought it would. And I was not of the same opinion a lot of you were. That was going to be some like fight, street fight. I thought it was a mismatch, and they managed to hang around, and that's a credit to coaching and the players executing the game plan. What are the odds Tech is out of September with a 3-2 record? So they have left Wake and Bowling Green. I think they have a good shot at Wake. I think that line's a little crazy at -8. I would jump all over that if I was a gambler. I don't gamble on college football because whenever I do, it doesn't go well for me. But I like their chances up at Winston-Salem, and I think they'll beat Bowling Green. So I think the odds are pretty good. I would put it at 75% that they finish 3-2. I think this game's a little bit of a toss-up this week, but I like Georgia Tech a little bit better. I think the Wake Forest flaws fit better against what's wrong with Georgia Tech. Wake Forest is bad on defense, and Georgia Tech's offense is really good. Now, this game could be like 48-38 or something, but I do think that Georgia Tech's offense is a little bit better than Wake Forest right now. They really were in a dogfight at Old Dominion last week. Why has play calling been so flat out of the half? Did Louisville make some better halftime adjustments than us? Yeah, I thought Louisville made a really good defensive adjustment. They changed some things with their line. It stuffed up the running game. And as far as Ole Miss halftime adjustments, I mean, yeah, they started covering those passes out into the flats, the running backs that were wide open in the first half. So I guess that would be an adjustment to make a decision to actually cover the running back out of the backfield. So yeah, that was probably the biggest adjustment there, and that took a minute to kind of adjust because they were still heavily hitting that. Lane tried to run up the score. Any thoughts, Brent Key, about that? I haven't asked Brent about it, but I did see someone when I was walking out, and that coach called it Bush League. There was they threw on first down, I believe, of that possession. And then the guy got loose for a cheap touchdown that shouldn't have been a touchdown. But take a knee, get out of there, because what happens if their offensive lineman breaks his leg or like that's why you take a knee. It has nothing to do even with necessarily sportsmanship. I think you're risking getting someone hurt there. So I don't know if they pulled their line or not, but it was weird. I don't have an issue with the touchdown before that. That was kind of piss poor effort on the defense's part of my thought. Let's see. How do I think Key responds to teams exploiting the team's weaknesses? They're going to self-scout and do all those things. That's why he hired, Don Hill Ely and all these other Bill Stewart, all these guys. They're supposed to work Brian Baker. Like those guys are going to self scout and figure out kind of what's wrong and try to go out and fix it. And this is where you make your money as a coach. You got to be able to adjust. You should get better as the season goes along. They got better last year. They think about how bad they looked with Zach Gibson in the first game that Zach Gibson played, and just the team looked bad, and how much better they played, at North Carolina with him, where everyone thought they were going to get blown out. You will progress as the season goes along. Now the question is, can they progress enough to get to a bowl game? You got to get through these next 2 weeks. You need to win the next 2 games. Otherwise, you're really setting yourself up on a hard path. I blocked that. The Rudy was offsides guy got booted out today. I'm done with him. It's enough of either. It's one of 2 people, and I'm done with both of them. Like if they're going to be jerks on the board, they're both getting tossed immediately. Like it's a zero respect situation. Is there anyone that hasn't seen the field yet, such as freshmen that have shown promises as disruptive defensive linemen, but need more time before they see the field? Ezra or Malcolm Pugh, I guess, is who this guy's wondering about, or Shameik Jones. Not really. That the rush end position, I thought Kyle Kennard has started to play better. He played well in the last 2 games. He was a guy that I think they really need something out of. He's much more consistent. Noah Collins has been a guy that's been really like kind of MIA this season, and I don't know what that's about. Kevin Harris has played a little bit. I thought Eddie Kelly's played really well. As a guy I watched him play at USF last year, and I thought he's played really well so far. But they're really missing Sylvain, and you're obviously missing Keon White. So, like, you have the 2 guys who were your 2 best sack guys last year, both not playing now. One because he's in the NFL, and the other one because he tore his ACL. That's going to be hard. Pretty much any school. It's not Alabama. How do you not call holding on the fake punt, or when a defensive player tugs a receiver backwards? The one on Zamari that was picked up was pretty egregious. He like threw him to the ground, basically pulled some Malik maybe to the ground. That was not good. The hold on Brett Seither on the fake punt was so bad. Avery Boyd was running with the football, waiting to throw to him, and like pointing at it basically and yelling at the ref to call the hold. That's how bad that play was. It was pretty egregious. I don't know. You're not going to get that in SEC Stadium. That's the downside of playing some of these games, in my opinion. Let's see. Someone asking a kind of long question about linebackers. They've had some misses there in recruiting. They started out of the box with misses in recruiting. Cornelius Evans is the first one that pops in mind that they took a chance on, and they've missed on other guys since then. Out of the ones they've signed out of high school, Katavian Franks is not here anymore. Tyson Miguez does not play for whatever reason, has not played a non-special team snap really since he's been healthy. Kyle Efert's playing a little bit now, and Trent Tatum's the only one that's really played that's been an organic guy that was signed in the Collins era. Charlie Thomas was literally playing for Paul Johnson, like as a freshman. So I think that they've had some whiffs in that linebacker room. Again, that was something I talked about going into the season. I thought that was an area of concern. I was not overly impressed with what I saw in the spring. And, Jacob Cruz or Nakari Ashley, those guys aren't. Ashton Heflin, they're not ready to play yet. Like, just aren't. Maybe they will be in week 6. That's something Brent keeps talking about. And maybe you'll see them play more. But I just don't think it's been very good. Someone asked a pretty detailed D-line question. I don't know how to answer that. Like, that's maybe a question said could answer better than I could about what they're doing in technique. I'm not watching the game back enough to like look at that and be able to give you a really great answer. How many plays we've made this year where we brought pressure? I could look up the blitz numbers for opposing quarterbacks. I'm not sure. Let's see. The last game with no penalty, someone brought that up, was Alcorn State, which was an absolute beating. That was very interesting. They didn't have any penalties in the game. Okay, let's get into some chat questions here. First one, how's GNR? I thought it was awesome. I had my doubts. I heard, I started that thread in the summertime about Axl Rose at Glastonbury, and I was talking to the crew like before the show. I was talking to some people from the crew, and they were like, "Hey, man, like they've made some changes with the sound and like the sound guy, and Axl sounds great." And it was interesting from the first song. I was like, "Wow, he sounds like 10,000 times better than that Glastonbury that mix." They're also doing a better job of letting the background singers take some of the more high parts and stuff, and they're also not over touring now, so they've a lot of breaks between shows. That's probably saving his voice a little bit. He's saying himself into a corner is one of these guys. Steven Tyler's like this too. Like the songs, Sammy Hagar, they're so difficult to sing that you make it. It's you can't really tune them down that much. So it's like they sound weird if you tune them down. So, but he was singing so high when he was younger that it's a problem. So I thought he sounded great. The show was great. The energy was awesome. It was cool. They were like really fired up for the show. They cut out some nonsense out of the show. A toddler screaming above me right now, so that's exciting. But yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting. Someone asked me, but I would say yeah, and I love Alice in Chains with God, what is his name? The new singer they have, or he's not a new singer. He's been with them for like 10, 12 years now. They replaced Lane Staley. William Duvall, I think is his name. Yeah, William Duvall. He's great. I thought I saw it was funny because the last time I saw Alice in Chains was they were opening for Velvet Revolver at Lakewood. It was a great show. And obviously Slash and Weiland did a good job on the GNR stuff, and they played Slither, the Velvet Revolver song last night. So that was kind of cool to hear Axl sing that. Not one who's against Thacker, but it's disappointing that they allowed the quarterback to run on us all night and never made an adjustment. I think that's about linebacker and safety play. Like, you've got to be able to have a guy who's comfortable being a spy or athletic enough to spy. And I don't think they have that guy right now. When did Coach Key know that Jamal Haynes was the guy running back? I think they got really excited about him in fall camp. He had some fumble issues at one point in camp. And then once he kind of got that squared away, he gives them something really dynamic. Buster Faulkner talked a lot about it in his press conference in the preseason, that he had guys like that before. There were slot receivers. There were sort of speed guys, speed and space, and just had good vision. And the thing with Jamal is I've always thought he's really talented. He just was stuck. He was stuck early on. He was stuck later on as Nate McCollum got really good. And they had, Malik last year who just had unbelievable hands. He got stuck behind those guys. And I think maybe, I don't know if he had fumbling issues with return stuff or just wasn't returning clean, so they didn't have him do that. But he was always a guy that I thought, and having watched him in high school, that he had this opportunity to do something, right? And he is a credit to why you stick around. A lot of guys didn't. He kept working hard. He worked his butt off on special teams, worked hard just academically to make sure he was in a good spot. He, struggled with all of those things early on and has managed to kind of lift himself up and turn into a tremendous attribute for Georgia Tech. So it's one of my favorite stories. He came up to me after the media avail maybe 2 weeks ago and gave me a big hug and was like, "Hey man, I appreciate you being like the only guy who still believed in me at one point around here. And, you know, it was nice to hear that. Like, because I just think that sometimes people forget about these guys. Like, you know, Avery Boyd caught a touchdown the other day. Like, there's guys on the team that can make plays. Sometimes there's reasons, even beyond injuries and other things, why they can't, or why they're not playing, or whatever. They're stuck behind somebody. There are guys who can play football that maybe aren't yet, and you see it sometimes as guys transfer, move around. You know, they get those opportunities and then turn into something. So I'm very happy for Jamal, and I hope he has a great year. Do you think Tatum needs to sit a game? I don't know you need to sit him, but like if he's not playing well, it's got to be a quick hook because he's put on enough bad tape at this point. I don't know that you expect it to suddenly change. So if I'm Kevin Shearer and it's my call, I'm looking at it and he's not playing well. Well, Paul Maiola can play that position. Let me see if Kyle Eford or Dre White or Braylon Oliver can come in and play the mic and give me something a little more dynamic, more of a thump there. Because you have two guys that are basically weak side linebackers, one trying to play Mike and Paul. That doesn't make sense. It's just not working. And I don't know that it's going to click at some point. Maybe they believe it will, but I haven't seen it. Let's see. Another fake punt question. It was just, well, they got held, so it wasn't an execution thing. The play was there. It was actually a good call, but it just, they didn't call the hold. It's hard to throw to a football when a guy gets mugged. Do I still see 6 wins? Yeah, sure. See 7 wins possible. I see 5-4 wins possible too. Like, we don't know. Like, every week this is a team that's going to be week to week. They're not, this ain't Ole Miss. This is not Florida State right now. They don't have a $1 million transfer in value. I'm not saying they paid him that. I'm saying that's what Keon Coleman's value is. They don't have a guy like that. They have picked up a really nice quarterback that Alabama and a lot of other schools to have right now, and Haynes King, that's been very effective, but they don't have all of the pieces. So it's going to be scheme, game plan, all of those things are going to come into play, whether or not they go bowling, and then some luck and also getting balls that bounce the right way and keeping the turnovers to a minimum. It is, William Duvall's from Atlanta. Yeah, I thought I knew that. I saw him sing. So this is Allison Chain Singers, a music thing for in a quick digression. I saw him sing with Jerry Cantrell before it was called Allison Chains again. I saw Jerry a couple times, got a set list. It's not hanging up in here. I'm not sure where it is, but from a show at the old Roxy, like the original one over on Buckhead. It was a great show back then. Saw Jerry at Music Midtown too. He had broken his hand and was like running around, really didn't know what to do on some of the songs where he wasn't really singing. So it was kind of a funny show. When Key came in as an assistant, I read he and Collins were best friends. They seem so different. Do you think they still talk? No. Do I think they were best friends? No. Do I think that Jeff Collins has best friends in the coaching business? It always seemed like the more people I talked to that worked with him were sort of at arm's length. Like, okay, Jeff, you know, like, okay, a little bit of humoring him. It was the thing that if everyone you go back in a time machine and look back like years and years, go back. You can't go back that far on the website, but like if you went back and looked at like the DC search when Ted Roof got hired, I said they should hire Mike Elko. Jeff Collins' name came up at the time, and I said that he had burned a lot of bridges here, and Paul would never hire him because Paul knew people who worked with him, like Charles Kelly. And not saying Charles did this, but there were Giff, Brian, all those guys worked there, and I doubt any of them would hire Jeff Collins and their staff. Just my take on it. If someone would like to ask a basketball question, sure, go ahead. I'm not sure if you updated it. Is there an update on DJ Moore? He was in a cast and a sling at the last home game. I'm going to guess he's out for a few more weeks. Brent said that he was out still when he was talking about Chase Lane, and someone asked him like about receivers being out, and he said receivers, and I said DJ, and he goes, yeah, DJ's been out for a while. And so it just sounds like, it'll be a little bit. I bumped into him and we commiserated for a second that he can't get healthy, but I didn't ask him about his injury. Joe Burns was a big advocate for Jeff Collins hiring. A lot of people like Jeff, and a lot of people changed their mind once they saw the product over time, saw how he handled himself, saw a lot of other things. There were things to like about the hire, and in terms of being able to sell a vision and sell the program and do those things, Jeff did an excellent job. Where it fell short was that the coaching piece of it was not satisfactory. And here's the thing. I got told a couple different stories this week, and I will tell this one real quick about Jeff. They went down to Tallahassee in 2020, the COVID year, to start the season. Jeff Sims' first game as starting quarterback. And the hotel they're staying in did like a really nice thing. They decorated the hotel with Georgia Tech stuff, and they put like pictures up of famous games, I guess, and stuff. One of which was the Miracle on Techwood. That's what it's called, right? The Austin Twins, the blocked field goal and return against Florida State. And it was a weird situation where they're in the elevator and someone had put up a picture of them blocking the field goal or whatever. And then that game like was up in this elevator. One of the staff members took it down because they said that Jeff could not stand and did not want to see anything from the Paul Johnson era around, period. And he would be furious if he saw this. I just thought this is like the pettiest shit I've ever heard of, like in my life. Like, get a life. Like, you took over for a guy who retired. Like, don't feel threatened by that. Like, go out and win games and coach. You talked about how you want to take the program back to 10 wins and do all these things. Go out and do them. Like, don't be threatened by the guy who did it. And the first thing that Brent Key did when he got the job was put a big old plaque of Paul Johnson, like right outside of his office, which says College Football Hall of Fame, Paul Johnson, 2023. Like, that's what you do. Like, it doesn't matter if you hate Paul Johnson. If you're Jeff Collins and you took that job, you've got to be like, hey, man, we're doing something different. We're rebranding and making Georgia Tech football cool. But we appreciate everything he did. I'm not going to dog the guy, but we're changing things. It's going to take a little time. If you do that and shut your mouth, things go a lot smoother. But all he did was create more problems for himself by constantly saying and making these weird comparisons, talking about friggin' Temple having NFL guys and all this bullshit. Like, it was unnecessary and it was stupid. And it was a waste of time and a waste of energy to even think about that. And to be thinking about it 3 years in was so comical to me. So someday I'll tell you guys Paul Johnson's nickname for him, but and it was coined in January of 2019. So it was not far into the tenure, but maybe I'll see if I can get Paul to say it on here one day, because it is very funny. It is one of my favorite Paul Johnson stories, because he said it right off the cuff, like his nickname for Jeff. So Leo Blackburn update. They hope to get him back, whether it's next month, November, bowl game, don't know. With those things, it's all about like when he can do things and his comfort level, and they're not going to rush that kid to, having done both ACLs, like, you got to give him time to be ready. So when he's ready, he'll play. We get a Thug Life Damon GIF tomorrow. That seemed to be the answer in the thread. I would stay tuned tomorrow to Jacketsonline for some good news on the hoops front. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to go hang out with my wife, who I've not seen in like 2 weeks because she was in Los Angeles all last week. And I was gone all weekend and then last night. All right, cool. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to try to do something for Wake Forest ahead of a Wake Forest game, but one last question. Who else do you like for 2024 GT recruiting? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what he does with his scholarships he has left. I just don't know enough yet to see how that's going to play out. I think they're probably going to take I'm sure they'll take a forward. I just don't know who it is yet. But appreciate y'all. We'll be back. And hopefully I'll get this up and running where Russell can jump on with me too. We'd like to do that at some point. But appreciate everybody, and I'll see you soon.